Yuma, hello. I'm Quentin Grafton and I'm a Professor of Economics and a Laureate Fellow and a UNESCO Chairholder at the Australian National University. I'm speaking to you on Ngunnawal Ngambie country. This is the lands, the traditional lands of the custodians of this country, the Aboriginal people who have been here for thousands of years. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. It's my real pleasure to be given this opportunity to speak to you for 5 minutes or so in relation to climate change, in relation to what's happening in Australia, and of course the issues of Indigenous rights and governance in the context of climate change and their country. Of course, I am not the person to be speaking to you on Indigenous issues. It's Indigenous people who should be doing that. But I can point to their voices and their words that have been written down. I would ask you to read the United Nations Declaration on Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It makes it very clear that rights to their country, to their land, to their waters, to everything in the context of their traditional lands is part of the solution going forward. I also would ask you to look at the recent Summit on Nature and Indigenous Peoples. It's well worth reading because it highlights what needs to happen in the context of climate change. What needs to happen is not just rights for Indigenous people, it's also the practices that need to be supported, and it's also the issue of having voice at the table in the context of decision making, so that marginalized people aren't left behind and that the people who have knowledge over thousands of years are listened to. That's the Indigenous story, and it's a story that's emerging and evolving and will continue to provide insights to us in relation to climate change mitigation and particularly in the context of adaptation. Here in Australia, we're facing an emergency, a climate crisis and a water crisis. 2019 was the hottest year ever recorded in Australia. We had huge bushfires that covered millions, destroyed millions of hectares of land, killed over 1 billion, that's 1,000 million animals, many of them wild animals. 34 people died in the fires and hundreds of other people will die prematurely because of smoke inhalation. That's the sort of challenge we face in Australia. 2019 had a temperature exceeding 1.5 degrees centigrade relative to earlier years in the pre-industrial times in Australia. So that's a trend in terms of increasing temperature. We also have increasing dryness in many parts of Australia. And of course, Australia is an arid and semi-arid country. Dryness means less water, of course. It also affects water quality. And this is a huge issue, especially for Indigenous Australians, where thousands, in fact, over 100,000 Indigenous persons and people living in remote communities don't have access to adequate water quality. We, of course, in Australia have the Great Barrier Reef, and as we have increases in sea surface temperature, we have coral bleaching. So this challenge is everywhere in Australia, and unfortunately for us and for the world, of course, is that we don't have the climate policies in place to effectively deal with this. In particular, we had a carbon price. Yes, we in Australia had a carbon price introduced in July 2012, but it was removed in July 2014. And now, at this time, at the end, as we approach the end of 2021, it's still not available. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to do many things. We need to increase energy efficiency. We need to quadruple at least in terms of solar and wind power between now and 2030. We have to do a lot more in terms of electric vehicles and transportation. We have to protect country. We have to prevent the destruction of forests and land degradation. There are many things that are needed, not only in Australia, but globally. It's my pleasure to be part of this grouping that focuses on climate change, of course, for COP26. But the water issues are fundamental, because unless we deal with the water emergency and the emerging water crises in the context of climate change, because there already is an emergency, these are additional crises and challenges and multiplication factors. We will not deliver sustainable goal 6 and water for all by 2030, and we most certainly won't avoid catastrophic climate change, which is coming our way, unless we move away on a different path, a pathway that we know is available to us, but we have to walk along that path and with our Indigenous brothers and sisters. So in closing, thank you for the opportunity. I wish you the best of success, as I won't be able to join you in person, but I wish everyone, in terms of the deliberations, a focus on solutions so we can have a better world, a better planet, and of course, better outcomes.